Alrighty, so I've had a couple of people ask me for some more examples or just some like clarification on this assignment. So I thought I'd go ahead and just videotape myself filling out this chart and sort of talking through what I'm thinking as I do it. And hopefully y'all just sort of following along with me and me talking through my thinking will give you a better idea of how we're filling out this chart and what we're looking for. So, really this chart is about, right, slowing down and noticing the kinds of thinking that we do when we think. We're all thinking anytime that we read, watch, listen to any sort of story, right? So it really is about noticing the thinking that you're doing. And then this bit, the like step 2 thinking that comes, that is more of the like, oh, I noticed I was thinking, I'm going to push myself to think a little bit deeper. Right? So normally when we're reading, we just sort of have these surface level thoughts that float in and out of our heads, and we might not necessarily be aware of them. Here is where we practice being aware of them. And here is where once we've kind of got a feel for like, oh, that was a thought I just had, we're going to push ourselves to go even deeper with that thought instead of sort of just letting it drift away, maybe unanswered or unthought about. Okay, so, I need something to read, right? And if we think about all the different kinds of reading, I am going to be, quote unquote, reading some of these pictures and situations. I don't know if y'all know Goofus and Gallant. When I was growing up, highlights was the big thing. Loved highlights, still love highlights. And Goofus and Gallant were, I don't even know if they were supposed to be brothers or classmates or what, but they were these two boys, and Gallant was like the good one, and Goofus was the bad one. And so they would show Goofus being bad and Gallant being good. And it was so funny because Goofus is just like the, like, rudest, grumpiest person. And it's so funny. Okay, so I will be quote-unquote reading some of these pictures. And really, what I want to be doing is while I'm looking at the pictures and reading the short little situations, I want to be monitoring the thinking I'm doing. So every time a thought goes through my head, I want to have in the back of my mind, ooh, that was a thought. Let me just pause and try and figure out what kind of thought that was from these options here. So let's go to our Goofus and Gallant cartoon, the big reveal of what we're reading today. Alrighty, so we've got on Goofus's side, it looks like he's, I don't know if that's grandpa or dad. I'm going to guess dad, because his hair's not completely white. Oh, wait, that's a thought. Okay, so even this, right, I haven't even read the caption yet, but I'm looking at the picture and I'm reading it, right? I'm interpreting, okay, we know this is Goofus, just from a quick glance, right? I just see Goofus, Gallant. Also, I love that Goofus's hair is like all messy or whatever, and supposedly Gallant's is like neater. You can see he's got like little action lines around him, so it looks like he's like pushing his dad maybe, or hitting his dad. I hope not. Dad does not look happy at all. And again, assuming this is dad because like he's only got a little white or like gray hair here, versus over here, this is obviously grandma because she's got all white hair. So that was a whole bunch of thoughts that I just had, right? So now, I mean, I couldn't even like stop myself. I was having all those thoughts. So now I got to come over here and try and remember, okay, what were some of the thoughts that I had? So, I think that's, Goofus's dad, maybe, grandpa, right? Maybe. Okay. Another thought I had, Goofus's hair is messy versus Gallant's hair is like what, combed, quote unquote neat. Let's see here, what other thoughts did I have? Oh, that Goofus has action lines around him. I'm sure there's an actual word for that, but he has action lines around him. Makes me think he's pushing or just like rushing to like take over the computer from his, let's say, dad, right? Okay, So that was just 3 random thoughts that I had while I was looking at that picture, right? I just came over here and wrote down, oh, those were the thoughts I had, right? And I had to kind of stop myself. I was like, oh, I want to read this caption, but I had already done so many, thoughts, right? I had already had so many thoughts run through my head when I was looking here that I had to go write them down before I forgot them, right? So now that I've got a couple of thoughts there, right, I've got them out of my brain onto the paper. I know I won't forget them. I've got to slow down a little bit, and I want to look at, okay, so those are my thoughts. How might I, label them, right? I think that's Goofus's dad, maybe his grandpa. So, let's see here. It looks like that was maybe an inference. Yeah, I think I'm going to call that an inference. So, that's what I'm going to label this. I made an inference. So then, now that I know what kind of thought this is, right, I'm going to come down here and see, okay, what am I supposed to do? What kind of thinking can I do to push myself a little further when I have an inference? So let's see here. Here it is. What happened to my inference as I read more? So, I want to answer this question here. And the answer is, right now, I need to keep reading, right? So that's where we'll leave it for now. Because at that moment, right, the moment I thought, okay, I think that's Dad, not Grandpa, I don't really have any more information that would give me an answer one way or the other, give me more information, right? Which is really what this question is getting to. As you got more information, how did that change your prediction or inference? Okay, so this one, let's look at that. Goofus's hair is messy, Gallon's hair is neat or combed. So that is, I wouldn't say it's an inference, right? Because we can see their hair. We're just stating how it looks, right? So that's just sort of a fact. So I think actually I'm going to go with something that stood out to me, right? It's not an inference. I'm not having to sort of guess at whether or not it's true that their hair is messy and neat. Yeah, it's true, and it's just something that stood out to me. So now I want to come down here, find the something that stood out to me question. Here it is. So how can I think a little bit deeper about something that stood out to me? Well, why did that something stand out to me? I think because I have seen other things where messy is used to what? Make something or someone there we go, I can spell. Make something or someone seem what? Bad or gross, right? Usually negative things. And neat is used for good things. So, the fact that Goofus, the bad one, right, has messy hair, is consistent with that trope, right? So it's consistent with, right? Consistent meaning it keeps the same, right? And the trope, that's sort of the stereotype, the expectation, the thing that lots of people do because it's just a message that's sort of been used for so long that people have an understanding of it without having to say anything. And so because for so long, messy, or messiness about a person has been only used for characters, where? No? Okay. yeah, messy or messiness has been used for so long to like sort of like add to the character of someone who is bad, right? They're evil and they're also messy. And so now it's become, they're messy, so you know they're evil, right? And Goofus and Gallant line up with that. Goofus is supposed to be the bad one. Ah, you can tell he's bad. Look at his messy hair. Gallant is supposed to be the good one. Ah, what a good, responsible child that combs his hair, right? And so that's why that caught my attention, because I know that is used in a lot of other things, and now I see it used here again, right? And what's cool about all of these questions, y'all, is that this is a very specific answer, right? And maybe that wasn't an answer that y'all would have thought of, but my answer is as unique as my interpretation, right? There isn't a correct answer. It's asking, why did that catch my attention? Well, I mean, this is why it caught me, Miss Phillips's attention, but this could have caught your attention for another reason, or maybe you didn't notice this, but something else caught your attention, right? So there isn't really a correct answer. It's about pushing ourselves to do a little bit deeper thinking and just sharing what that thinking is. And it helps us get in that practice of slowing down and noticing it. Because when we notice and we take note of it and we write down, it helps us sort of like feel a little more connected of like, oh, this is what it feels like to notice that thought. This is what it feels like to slow down and do a little bit of deeper thinking, right? That way, if at some point in the future, some like random teacher or person in your life is like, come on, think deeper about it. And you're like, what do you mean by that? This is what we mean by that, right? This is what it feels like to stretch yourself and like push that thinking just a little bit deeper, right? We spend some more time on it, really going into like other connections and thoughts that we have that you know gave us our distinct interpretation of that thing. Okay, so let's take a look at this next one. Goofus has action lines around him. So I'm thinking of these like little wiggly lines, right? Which, let's look at Gallant. What a good boy. Nice and calm and still, right? Which that's another stereotype, right? If you're like the hyperactive, fidgety one, like, oh, you're supposed to be like the bad one, right? Whereas if you were like a calm, like quiet, peaceful child, right? Supposedly you're the good one. So with these action lines, right? My thought was, it makes me think he's pushing or just like rushing over to take the computer from his dad. And so let's come down here, see what kind of thought that is. So he has action lines around him. That would just be something that stood out to me, right? But then I also make an inference because, okay, I see the action lines. The way that I'm interpreting that is this, right? That's my best guess for what he's doing there. It wouldn't be a prediction because I'm not going to get to see what happens in the future, right? This is both the beginning and the end of this like text, right? I see it all in one moment. So I guess I could make a prediction, but in the end, my prediction is going to, come to the same thing as my inference, because what happened to my prediction, what happened to my inference, both of them are going to have to be my best guess. And because we don't really find out what happens in the future, I'm going to go ahead and just call this an inference. So honestly, y'all, it would be both. Let's see here. There we go. So I noticed something that stood out to me, and then I made an inference. Boop. There we go. So, what do we do with those two things? Well, let's see here. We'll answer the two questions for them. Why did that something stand out to me? And what happened to my prediction inference as I read more? So let's go ahead and answer these questions. Why did that something stand out to me? Well, I was looking closely at the picture of Goofus. Whoa. Of Goofus. And trying to notice small details before I read the caption. And